Welcome, everyone. You're brave souls to be coming to a conference on psychopaths and mind control, and we thank you for coming. It's not the kind of material that attracts most people. So I would guess that you've come today because you know enough about what's going on out there that you want to know more. We honor you for this, and we welcome you. This conference is a little different from some of those out there, where it's fairly normal to take the material found out in the media, to speculate, and to attempt to connect the dots and extrapolate, sometimes wildly. We've taken great pains to either fully document the material we are presenting or to bring it from our own direct experience. We invite you to dig deeper into these topics. There is a vast amount of excellent material and documented research out there. We've put together a brief resource list for you that you might find interesting to launch your further research. And as a side note, too, we're using the terms psychopath and psychopathy intentionally. There's some confusion and crossover out there in terms, and many helping sites and even excellent books are using the term sociopath and psychopath interchangeably. They are describing a psychopath and calling it a sociopath. And I too had switched over to the term sociopath because it was being spoken out there as interchangeably, and I got this message that they were dropping the term psychopathy. But that's not happening now. There's a resurgence, and it's come and gone over the years. So I also wondered if that was an attempt to minimize the truth of psychopathy out there. And it's just sociopathy. It's just they don't, okay. But the truth is, psychopathy is very real, and we're going to be talking about it not only on the interpersonal level, but on the global level. So we believe that what you will be hearing and seeing today is key. It's key and often an unexamined piece to understanding what is going on in today's crazy world. And interestingly, the truth about the elements of psychopathy and psychopathically driven mind control is not readily apparent to most people, and certainly not talked about in the media. The reasons for this are, I believe, both intentional. Those in power who are doing it don't want to out themselves. And it's also based on our own unwitting protective psychology. So, my name is Lorenz. And I will be introducing our conference and the speakers, and I will be a speaker myself. And I've been blessed with the opportunity to work as a counselor with some of the most amazing people I can imagine. And these are people who have suffered unbelievably cunning, cold, and diabolically structured forms of abuse inflicted by other seemingly humans. During the 20-something years I've worked in this area, I can't remember how many times I felt like my head was being turned inside out, on its ear, upside down, pushed past what I could possibly imagine was true. Yet the people who were relating these experiences were so credible, so consistent, and so real, I could not dismiss what they told me. So needing to make sense of this for myself, I had to start digging into the literature. And what I found changed me profoundly. And this is why I am standing before you today. So back to why we don't notice how psychopathy operates under our noses in the world. One of those reasons is that it seems so unbelievable that any person would want what these people appear to want. That no one could do the insane, cold, brutal things these people do and could lie about it so long and so consistently that their actions fade into the background. It just seemed too much to believe. So in order for our minds to have some sense of orderliness and predictability in the world, sometimes we really need to function okay out there, our brains to help us filter the clues out of our perception. It's automatic. It's below awareness. Most of this is without even knowing it's happening. It's at the level of the brainstem, actually. If we can't do anything about it, or if it's too scary to hold. That's what our brains have to do to keep some semblance of safety and perceived safety in the world, even if it's a fantasy. And also the training we received as children to be good and to see the good in others is very effective, even spiritual training. It's some of the earliest mind control we got, and it's still operating. But as sweet as that training is, it's a barrier now to our seeing the truth in the world. And if we don't see that truth, then we are sitting ducks for anyone who can and wants to influence our minds and our perceptions. So an outcome of that tendency for many of us, myself included, is to assume that there is a core goodness in everyone. If we just keep faith in it, look for it, support it, it will somehow emerge. Some part of us may fear underneath that if we let in that there is something so cold, so devoid of love and care in others, if we acknowledge that, then our safety in the world will collapse. Some part of us, certainly some part in me, has held on to that comforting belief. And despite having my head turned on its ear regarding human nature, I still hold that optimistic perspective for those of us of humanity who are intact, who are what I'll call normal. But I've been forced little by little to accept that there are those among us who are so fundamentally different, so devoid of the capacity for empathy, lacking internal guidelines of what we call conscience, that we cannot allow that belief in us to put us in harm's way. I've been forced to change my perspective, my understanding of what humans are. We are not all cut from the same cloth. We do not all even have the same brain structures. Just as some are born with physical anomalies, perhaps a limb missing or malformed, some are born with a part of their brains literally missing or underdeveloped. While so many body parts, limbs for example, can be fixed or compensated for, these people, the psychopaths among us, can appear very normal, in fact, often better than normal. And yet, they lack the very elements that make us human and allow us or rather compel us to connect with each other, to want to feel each other, to belong with each other, to care for each other. So the point to this is psychopaths are profoundly different and dangerous. They don't only exist in prisons and corporations and abusive love relationships. With their lack of conscience, they are unrestricted in what they can do to climb to the top. We're here to understand what they are and how they operate at the highest levels of power in our world, coldly, cunningly, with the intent to control and use all others. With this knowledge, we can begin to see through their ruses, step out of their trance of control, and take other action. So the other reason we need to counter our own brain's tendency to not see what is there is that there really are people who love to control and dominate and hurt. They are actively working to do that and then conceal it. These psychopathic people really do commit these incredible acts and really do seek to conceal what they're doing so they can continue doing it. If they are found out, they will attack with a viciousness that is shocking. If we do not understand who and what the psychopath is, if we do not really let this in, then we become exactly what the psychopath wants us to be. Someone who is easily controlled and used through the very fact that we care and we want to help. If we don't get this, that intact, fully feeling humans are looked at as objects, as prey, tools, then we become those very things for the psychopath. This series of talks today is an exercise in reality. It relates to our personal lives with regard to psychopaths that we may interact with daily or occasionally, but especially, hopefully, it will offer a lens through which we can understand the strange and hazardous behavior of psychopaths who have used their freedom from conscience and human care to do whatever they want. They have ruthlessly accumulated unbelievable wealth and power which has afforded them the protection to act out their proclivities behind the walls that money can buy. It allows them to act out their hunger for power on a grand scale, with intelligence, cunning, and planning that is not seen in the type of psychopaths that end up in prison. Most of the psychological literature on psychopathy is based on incarcerated criminals. They are the ones held captive for psychologists to study. And have given the impression that psychopaths are disorganized and unable to hold concentration or plan well enough to not get caught. What we are looking at in this conference today is a whole other level of psychopathy, which still has all the cold cruelty and sadistic pleasure of controlling and hurting others, but also the ability to protect itself, to organize, to make long-range plans, and for increased power, while it simultaneously protects and supports its bizarre appetites for money, dominant sex, and power expressed in ways a normal human would find unbelievable. These are people who have developed a huge knowledge base of human behavior and brain responses, and they have sophisticated techniques and technologies to influence and control human behavior so they can remain in power and enjoy the dominance they crave. And if they are at risk of exposure, there is clear evidence of the level of viciousness and punishment they can exert to the point of murder and suppression of court action in order to protect themselves, their lifestyles, and their elitism. These are hard things to look at. But if we yield to those parts of us who don't want to see this reality, then we will not understand what is happening to us on a larger scale, and we will feel powerless in the face of huge cultural movements that seem random or capricious. We will miss that there are calculated effects on us and our intact brains that are intended to render us distractedly reactive, helpless, overwhelmed, so that we don't notice what's happening to us. And as we speak about these psychopaths in high places today, these forces in our world, as we let this truth in, we are also taking the first steps to stop them, to heal the damage they have been doing. They cannot operate successfully if they are seen and named and their motivations exposed. And that process starts with each one of us today. They can choose, then we can choose to move differently in the world, not dance to their music, to choose our own path and help others do the same. So the invitation this afternoon is to temporarily suspend that part of us that doesn't want this to be true. That's the good part of us, okay? But sometimes we need to let in realities that are so ugly that this part of us can't tolerate it. So just for a little bit, we can ask at that lovely aspect of ourselves, take a mini vacation. Go shopping, go to the beach, walk in the woods. Let that part not have to be here directly looking at this. And as we take a look at what is actually happening out there, we might also want to help our nervous systems to not get upset, to not go into reaction at the things that are going on out there, but to stay clear-headed and open-minded. So I'll share a little technique that I've been using over the years, which has helped my clients and myself work with some of this material that they've actually lived through. This process is a part of EFT. that I use in my work. And for today, it can be as simple as just holding an acupuncture point and breathing slowly and deeply. And one of those points, it's a pair of points right here on the chest, on either side of the sternum, just below the collarbone. And this is actually the kidney meridian. And it connects us through our feet into the earth. So we hold this point, and you can do it with one hand too, fingers on one side and thumb on the other. You know, it's just sitting around. You can do it so no one notices what you're doing. And you're connecting your body into the earth, grounding. And then you take a deep breath and just relax and go, okay, I'm here. I can come back in. And because you start to notice in contrast when you're out there somewhere and you're kind of looking at things from a distance. And when we come into our bodies, we actually do real changes to our brains, to where our brain is able to process information as it's coming in, instead of our having to go away. And when we finally feel safety again, then we can process it. This way we can truly stay present in a very mindful sort of way. And then the other point that is excellent for this is the side of the hand, called the karate chop point. And you can, either of these, you can tap them or hold them. And just, sitting in your lap, just holding your hands, no big deal. And at the same time, I'm grounding myself, because this point goes to the small intestine. And the small intestine is where our second brain is. It's said that we have as much gray matter in our belly as we do between our ears. So we're tapping into that. It's the part of us that really perceives what's going on. And when we're connected with that, we can process. So these are tools that we can use the deep breathing and slowing. Through those, we give our brain direct sensory information about safety. So our brain doesn't go into a fear response when we hear this kind of information. And I'll talk later about how that helps our brains function in a way that we can assimilate information that might otherwise make our brains shut off. This is real empowerment in the face of those who would want to control us through fear and confusion. So feel free to use this little technique and use it before things feel tense or the mind says, no way, this can't be true. You can even let this part go shopping too. But we don't want to shut off our thinking. We want to just let the information accumulate, and then we can evaluate it. Go do further research. Let it soak in. Does it make sense? Does it fit together? And if you want to go outside also and take a little break, if this material gets strong, we don't consider that rude. We really want you to take care of yourself, because some of this is, some of you may have really done a lot of research on this. For some of you, it might be fairly new, and it's a lot to take in. So do take care of yourselves. So after each talk, there will be a short question and answer period for questions pertaining specifically to the material presented. And then the last session will be a panel with all the speakers, so that we and you can dialogue about the meaning of this information, what we can do with it, how we can make ourselves more immune to the agenda behind psychopathy and mind control, and who knows where we might go with it. So that is our introduction.